all the money they had to spend. Huge money from the Tennessee Titans. They entered the window as one of the top cap space teams in the league, and they brought in some ex-Giants to join Brian Dable, including cornerback Cordell Flott, one of two major corner additions today. And you can see some of the other names. Wan'Dale Robinson, a big one there as well. Don't forget about that. All right, Adam Schefter.
That's essentially the situation. That encapsulates the entirety of what exists for the Tennessee Titans at this moment. Despite their significant financial investments and what appears to be an impressive offseason campaign, the coverage remains minimal. This represents the most frustrating aspect of producing Tennessee Titans content. The availability is simply sparse and intermittent. I recently gained insight into why this pattern persists. Smaller market teams generate reduced viewership, attract fewer clicks, and if you're creating videos, any single piece of content that underperforms has the potential to negatively impact your entire channel's performance. This explains why I consistently emphasize the importance of subscribing and watching content in its entirety, particularly for these smaller market franchises. My desire is to maintain the ability to discuss the Tennessee Titans without constantly worrying about algorithmic consequences. What I've come to understand is that persistently creating videos about teams like the Titans that don't attract substantial viewership can potentially undermine everything else I produce. The way you can help counteract this dynamic is by subscribing and watching the complete video. I'm simply attempting to cultivate enough of a foundational audience that I can discuss the Tennessee Titans freely, without algorithmic anxiety. When you subscribe and simultaneously watch content in full, viewership metrics escalate, subscriber counts surge, and I can devote attention to the Tennessee Titans without battling the almighty algorithm. Please do help support this coverage because the current situation proves incredibly frustrating. I've searched extensively across platforms, and this represents the only substantial off-season content available for the Titans right now. Initially, when I encountered this segment while actively seeking Titans material, I saw the graphic and thought, excellent, they're finally going to discuss Tennessee. Wrong. Then I considered, perhaps Adam Schefter will address it. Maybe Dan Orlovsky will cover it. Wrong again. Nothing on First Things First, nothing on The Herd, nothing on Get Up, nothing on First Take. Complete absence across the board. The frustration is immense. Consequently, I'm doing everything within my capacity, attempting to fulfill my role in generating coverage, because I genuinely appreciate the strategic moves they're executing. They're allocating resources aggressively on both offensive and defensive sides of the ball. They're attacking comprehensively. They've positioned themselves with two coaches, Salah and Dable, whom they're evidently setting up for success. Additionally, they hold a premium draft selection, obviously. There's considerable confidence circulating that Abdul Carter will land with the Tennessee Titans. Now they're accumulating legitimate talent. Now they possess genuine offensive weapons for Cam Ward and Brian Dable to utilize. That scenario generates genuine excitement. I've been thoroughly impressed with how the Las Vegas Raiders have conducted their offseason and navigated free agency. I engaged with someone in the comment section who essentially suggested that the Titans should emulate the Raiders' approach. I understand that perspective, particularly regarding offensive line fortification and related priorities. I believe the Titans are executing admirably in that regard. Genuinely, I do. Let me be clear. You can always enhance your offensive line. No matter how exceptional it appears, there's always room for improvement. However, Tennessee's line wasn't catastrophically deficient. Their 64% pass block win rate ranked 16th league-wide. This wasn't the decisive factor separating victories from defeats. Their run block win rate reached 70%. The rankings can prove somewhat misleading in these evaluations because the statistical compression creates situations where a team ranked 26th can ascend to 16th with merely a 1 percentage point increase. From my perspective, the actual percentages carry greater significance than the rankings themselves. When you examine Tennessee's 64% pass block win rate and compare it to a team at 54% ranking 32nd, that 10 percentage point differential represents a substantial swing. The rankings themselves matter less proportionally. Improve by a few additional points and suddenly you're positioned among the top 10. Consequently, I believe the rankings warrant consideration with appropriate skepticism. When you analyze a team like the Las Vegas Raiders, they posted 61% and 70% respectively. Their rushing attack was objectively terrible. Despite seemingly having a capable running back in Zamir White, the ground game remained ineffective. Examining the Tennessee Titans specifically, their rushing statistics were atrocious. 93.5 yards per game. Absolutely dreadful. Repeatedly, unequivocally awful. Failing to surpass 100 rushing yards per game at this stage of franchise development indicates a fundamentally challenging existence. That's an extraordinarily difficult way to operate offensively. However, the Raiders actually performed even worse in this category. The additional complication involved their inability to convert rushing opportunities into touchdowns near the goal line. They managed only 9 rushing touchdowns total. 9. So you're dealing with a defense that underperformed, a running game that struggled to generate yardage, and when you finally penetrated the red zone, you couldn't alleviate pressure on your quarterback by punching the ball in on the ground. The rushing touchdown production was essentially non-existent. Consider the Minnesota Vikings, a franchise experiencing considerable turmoil with multiple quarterback changes, various injuries, widespread organizational chaos. Watching Sam Darnold improvising extensively, they still accumulated 15 rushing touchdowns. They achieved 108.3 rushing yards per game, despite an offensive line that wasn't particularly impressive. Through schematic adjustments and personnel deployment, they managed to generate production on the ground. Personally, I'm tremendously excited about the prospect of acquiring Ashton Jeanty. I believe that addition could prove transformative. There's a post I encountered from Kurt Benkert that resonated strongly with me. The Titans are comprehensively loading their roster while still holding a top 5 selection to make another significant splash, potentially Jeanty. They could emerge as a one-year turnaround team worthy of monitoring. They'll present a completely transformed appearance while already possessing an extraordinarily talented quarterback. Let me state definitively, I absolutely believe they'll achieve a one-year turnaround. Unless Cam Ward proves to be an unequivocal bust, which I genuinely doubt will happen, I anticipate substantial success under Brian Daboll's guidance. I won't suggest the product will appear aesthetically pleasing week after week, because legitimate growing pains will inevitably occur. Last season presented exceptionally difficult circumstances, and I suspect minimal developmental progress occurred for Ward during that period. Whatever your assessment of Brian Daboll, I maintain significant confidence in his capacity to develop young talent. Whether he can maximize overall offensive potential and extract optimal performance from every roster configuration remains undetermined. However, his track record regarding young player development, cultivating raw talent freshly transitioned from collegiate competition, demonstrates consistent capability. This seems readily apparent and clearly evident to me. I'm particularly encouraged that he doesn't need to simultaneously manage head coaching responsibilities while developing Cam Ward. Now he's receiving concrete offensive pieces to utilize, with the potential addition of Jeanty. I deliberately resist becoming excessively invested in specific draft predictions because the emotional investment proves frustrating. You convince yourself something will materialize, articulate that expectation, and when circumstances deviate, you feel as though you've wasted considerable mental energy. Therefore, I attempt not to become overly preoccupied with draft speculation. I prefer concentrating on confirmed developments, actual events we know transpired. This perspective explains why I appreciate the Mitchell Trubisky acquisition. I consistently value veteran quarterback presences who have experienced various NFL situations. Trubisky will spend tremendous time with Cam Ward, functioning essentially as an extension of Brian Daboll's coaching philosophy. There's substantial knowledge Mitchell Trubisky can impart. I particularly appreciate backup quarterbacks who have navigated multiple organizations and accumulated diverse experiences. Trubisky has even participated in playoff competition. Someone with that experiential background contributes significantly to a young quarterback's development. This represents one error the Chicago Bears committed several seasons ago before Caleb Williams' rookie campaign. Having a veteran presence, one not looming competitively with aspirations of starting, proves consistently beneficial. That's clearly not the situation here. Mitchell Trubisky seems genuinely ideal for this role. I'm currently unable to locate the specific clip, but Dan Orlovsky also expressed his belief that the Tennessee Titans will select Ashton Jeanty. It emerged within an entirely different segment where he was discussing another franchise, then casually inserted that he anticipates Jeanty landing in Tennessee. The comment functioned as a throwaway line within unrelated analysis, but he explicitly stated that expectation. The context involved discussion about either the Raiders or Chiefs potentially, completely disconnected from Tennessee coverage. That's why it doesn't constitute clip-worthy material, but the sentiment was nevertheless expressed. The Titans have accumulated modest momentum. I'm genuinely curious about your preferences. Do you want Ashton Jeanty? I've produced previous Raiders content and Titans videos addressing potential draft directions, obviously preceding free agency developments. They've executed concrete, specific moves during free agency. So I'm wondering about your current mindset. Are you envisioning Jeanty, perhaps defensive reinforcements? What's your thinking at this juncture? Share your perspectives with me. I personally review every comment, whether expressing agreement or disagreement with my analysis. Let's generate substantive discussion. Let's engage in spirited exchange, but ultimately prioritize enjoyment throughout this process. Please consider subscribing to the channel. We're cultivating an exceptional community here and would genuinely welcome your participation. My objective involves constructing something we all authentically feel connected to, something generating genuine enthusiasm about membership. I believe we're progressing substantially toward that goal. Please remember to provide this video with positive rating as it significantly enhances visibility and algorithmic reach. Thank you sincerely.